1. I have lived in my apartment for 8 months now, and I will move out in another month. In the time I've been here, I have requested my 3 roommates, who are international students and already friends with each other, repeatedly to please try to keep it down after 10 p.m., not cooking a full meal, not doing laundry, not loudly talking or watching TV in the common space. Because I get up at 7 or 8 a.m. to go to work on weekdays. The walls are thin, and I am closest to the kitchen and laundry unit. The sounds and smells make it hard to fall and stay asleep. If they want to make noise on the weekends, I don't care. The issue is that they are graduate students, so their schedules are different from mine. I try to be considerate to them by not eating breakfast at the apartment in the morning, as they sleep late and I am up at 8 a.m., just asking for the same courtesy back. However, the reported issue that I run into is that they are very agreeable when I approach them with this issue, but then go right back to doing these things the next night. I don't want to seem like I'm nagging, but I need to prioritize my comfort, so each month I approach them 2 or 3 times about this, each time calmly and nicely. However, last month one of them left for a month for vacation, and then came back and didn't want to pay the utility bills, claiming that because they didn't use it, they shouldn't have to pay. I told them I'm not paying almost double my normal monthly bill, just so I can shoulder your portion. You wouldn't just not pay the bill if you lived alone. Why would you expect any different with roommates? To me, that's just selfish, so I asked my landlord if they were allowed to do that, to which she emailed all of us with a warning about potentially violating the lease, and that made all of them very upset. Their argument is that I should have communicated with them first, and shouldn't have involved everyone in petty drama, and that they would have been happy to pay, even bragging about how if they could spend thousands on a vacation, they can pay their own bills. Which is funny to me, because why didn't you just pay it in the first place then? My argument for not going to the roommates directly is that for 7 months I have repeatedly tried to ask them to respect one thing that I have asked of them, which is being quiet after 10 p.m. if the next day is a workday, and that has consistently fallen on deaf ears. I have no reason to believe that going to them to communicate this time would be effective either, since this is about bills. I went to the landlord for my own protection. I then asked the roommate I mainly have a problem with to speak to me one-on-one, and give them the option to decide a time and a place, and they flat out refused. This is because the email thread we were previously communicating allowed them and their 2 friends to gang up on me. I say something and I get 3 replies back, so it's constantly 3-on-1. But they shy away when I ask for a one-on-one in-person conversation, and refuse to diffuse the tension in the apartment. I met with my landlord, and they've asked me just to stop engaging with these roommates, especially because I'll be moving soon. And I've respected that request and done so. But now almost every night my roommates are in the living room, cooking until 11:30, 12, all the lights are on, slamming drawers, drying clothes. It's hard not to feel like it's targeted and on purpose. Noise-canceling headphones and earplugs only take me so far, and it just enrages me that I'm just supposed to be quiet when I'm being treated like this. It's also upsetting that standing up for yourself and speaking out against the status quo, they constantly claim that they've always lived like this, gets so much pushback. I wake up with anxiety every day, because being in this shared space with them upsets me that much. I'm contemplating going to my landlord again, but I do worry that I'm coming off like I'm just throwing a fit every time I don't get my way. However, there is just no fining system or any consequences for them. Any advice for this last month? Hellfreezer's note. Unfortunately, the only advice I really have for you is just live your life there. Stop being considerate of the noise you might be making that might upset them, and just use the facilities as you want to and when you want to. I'm sure your roommates probably aren't bad people, but the fact is you ended up rooming with a bunch of people who are in sync with each other, and you were not. You were never going to be compatible here. I hope that the next place you find yourself in is more suitable to your needs and you have someone who has a similar schedule and similar needs to yourself. That way it won't be a problem. 2. My roommate is a 29-year-old woman and has developed anxious attachment issues after having an abusive childhood with detached parents. I am a 26-year-old woman and am a very empathic person, so I feel others' emotions easily and it can be overwhelming. I also have general anxiety, so I understand how difficult it is to deal with. She smokes medical marijuana to help with the anxiety, but it doesn't seem to be doing much. For the past 5 months, I have been emotionally drained from living with her. I have difficulties with confrontation and establishing boundaries with people. I don't know how to tell her without upsetting her. I work long hours with a demanding schedule, but it gets frustrating being bombarded by constant messages and calls when she needs me. She admits she has problems with her memory due to her past trauma, and I have to keep reminding her that I can't take calls at work. If I am on a family vacation, it can't wait. It's like she needs an answer right away and can't wait. She doesn't seem to understand I have a life too, and any time I have other priorities, I have to drop everything for her. If I come home from work early, she bombards me before I get through the door, before I can take off my work uniform and relax from work. She wants me to constantly be by her side and hang out with her for several hours as she gets ready for work. Any personal drama or detail going on at work or in her personal life she dumps onto me. She can't go to the bathroom by herself without me coming in no matter where we go, either in public or her bathroom. She overshares a lot of personal details about her life, including mucus out of her eyes or showing me her feces in the toilet and asking about her diet. It personally disgusts me, and I've never been that close with anyone that is so comfortable in doing that. Any party we go to, if I attempt to go to the bathroom or off by myself, she is attached to me at the hip. She needs to walk extremely close to me, to the point where she is bumping into me. It's like having a toddler constantly hanging on to his mother's dress. She involves me in all the drama with her boyfriend, who she broke up with, but is still living with us, as he is saving up money in order to move out, and encourages me to keep secrets around him, like the fact she's seeing a new guy despite being broken up. She doesn't trust her ex and feels he'll sabotage her in some way before he moves out, without having any evidence that he is vindictive. They've been together for 5.5 years, and she doesn't trust him at all. She has made me hide her stuff in my room. She got on outings with the new guy, and wants me to cover for her and come up with stories for her ex, so she doesn't have to argue with him, as he was very controlling about how long she goes out and with who. She keeps making me take shots of liquor with her every time she goes into work, 5 days a week, and we have to talk at a whisper volume so her ex doesn't hear the conversations, and then hide the alcohol because her ex doesn't approve of her drinking. I'm sick of the charades and tired of the drinking. She lied to me and said he doesn't want to give her rights to work anymore, but then later admitted he didn't say that, and was jealous that she saw the new boyfriend drop her off the previous night, and she wanted to avoid an argument. Every time she has me drive her somewhere, it takes up a lot of my personal time, and she keeps bringing up random places she needs to go. She's forgetful that I do not have a medical marijuana card, and left her weed pen in my car once. She trashes my car and keeps using up all my vapes. I buy some for her to use, but every time I tell her she can keep the spare, she hands it back to me every few seconds and keeps asking if she can hit. Just keep the damn thing. She even keeps begging me to go on outings with her and her new boyfriend, where I feel like a third wheel and I'm not having a good time. It's awkward because her boyfriend acts like I don't exist and I feel he doesn't want me there. She claims she brings me along because she doesn't want to get serious with anyone despite having sex with him twice and letting him touch and kiss her on our outings, since she's still getting over her breakup with her ex. Anytime she finds out I have a day off, we have to go out and do something. If I say no, she won't stop begging, calling, texting, knocking on my door and begging to pay my way no matter what excuse I give. She can't ever be alone. She told me if we ended up moving out of our current place, when she was still with her ex, she asked if I could move in with them, because even though she has a boyfriend, she still needs a friend to be with her, because she's never lived alone. Any type of anxiety she has, she projects onto me. because she is worried about aging and running out of time for youth, then I must be. We have practically the same name, just a slight pronunciation difference. So she'll refer to herself by my pronunciation and introduce herself to people this way, because she doesn't like how her name is spelled and pronounced. I dread looking at my phone, and she will only contact me on Snapchat, so she can see if I view the message. I have to constantly avoid her, and that's hard to do considering we live in the same house together. I grew up an only child, and I am an introverted person who likes to spend time alone. I'm suffering from anxiety and irritability, because I'm being pushed to my wits' end. I look for excuses to stay out later, and even stay later at work just to avoid coming home when she's there. I don't know what to do. I've listened to every problem she's had for the past 5 months, given her everything she's asked for, went out with her, put up with her emotionally abusive ex, covered for her, given her advice, answered her calls and text messages. It's never been enough. Health Research Note, quite frankly, I'm a little worried about you, because I feel like you're about to get single white femaled. And as you are only 26, you may not get that reference, because I don't think they've remade it yet. So, Google it. It's not a good thing. I do appreciate and respect that you are saying no to her, and she's just ignoring your wants and needs. My gut instinct is to tell you to just say to her that you only want a roommate, you don't want a friend. But that'll cause all sorts of problems because you do live with her. I'm hoping you don't have long left on your lease, and you can certainly just ghost her when you're done. She sounds like an absolute nightmare. But I am concerned that if you do confront her directly, that it's going to go very badly. I would be considering how long you have on that lease. You've only been living together 5 months, I believe it was you said at the start of the story. Yeah, 5 months. Can you really put up with this for the rest of the lease? I would definitely just uninstall Snapchat from your phone, if that's something you're able to do. I don't know who else you might communicate with on there. There are other apps available. But, while I am concerned for your safety, I think ultimately the only way out is through here. And that is just be upfront with her. Tell her she's smothering you, and that you need privacy. You don't need a human puppy being all over you when you come home. Maybe don't phrase it that way. I can be a little brash sometimes in my phrasing. If she's smoking medical marijuana to help with anxiety, is she in therapy? These attachment issues are definitely something she should be discussing with a therapist. And you're not her therapist. She probably couldn't afford you. Whatever happens, I wish you luck. 3. So I met my current roommate about 1.5 years ago on Facebook Marketplace. To be honest, I was in a rush to find a place and didn't know too much about tenants' rights or the law. Anyway, I picked her because it was the most affordable place I could find, and now looking back there were so many red flags I didn't notice. But oh well, you live and learn. She said rent was $800 a month, and she required $500 non-refundable deposit. I agreed to it and moved in. 3 months of living here, she texted me to ask if I could help out with the bills, because apparently they were never a part of the rent and I never thought to ask, again my mistake. I just assumed it was all $800. I tried explaining that my budget was $800 and that's why I agreed to move here, and if I had known it was without bills, then I wouldn't have moved here. But she eventually made me feel bad and I agreed to just pay extra for the bills. Now I was paying a little over $1,000 to $1,100 because everything was being split between 3 roommates. Everything is going normal for about a month until her 20-year-old daughter and her boyfriend started sleeping over. It went for a weekend to 2 weeks, and then suddenly it had been almost 2 months of them being there. I decided to bring it up to my roommate that I didn't think it was fair that her guests were overstaying their welcome, and that if anything, she should at the very least provide groceries for them. They were using my groceries and not replacing them, or even asking if they could have them. I'm not stingy or anything like that, but I am a single mom and only had one job. I was barely getting by. and bathroom supplies. They were also using my shampoo, conditioner, toilet paper, and toothpaste. I also told her that if they were going to move in, then they need to start paying rent, or that she needs to cover their rent. She got upset with me and got defensive. She told me that her kids come first and that I, a little girl, wasn't going to tell her what to do in her house. I'm 24 and she's 41, by the way. Her daughter ended up leaving shortly after I had that conversation with her. Ever since then, she would roll her eyes at me or make dumb remarks such as, "No one use that restroom, please." She would also tell the other roommate that I was mean and rude to her, and now the other roommate doesn't like me and is very passive-aggressive toward me. She and I got into another argument 2 months later because her 17-year-old daughter kept having huge parties at the house with minors drinking and random people inside the house roaming around or making out or trying to have sex inside the house and making a mess multiple times in just 2 months. I decided to speak up and tell her that I didn't think it was fair for her to not even let us know of the parties, or provide toilet paper for her guests, or clean our restrooms or the house after. She got defensive yet again and basically said that I'm just a little girl and that this is her house. Then a week later we have a leaky kitchen faucet, and I brought it up to her and she just kept avoiding getting it fixed. She still hasn't gotten it fixed. So then I went to my roommate about it, and she tells me that normally the landlord is the one that fixes that. So that's when I found out that my roommate wasn't the landlord, and she was just renting the house and renting the rooms to myself and the other roommate. I confronted her about this, and she said that the landlord knew we were staying at the house, and I foolishly believed her. Anyway, 3 months later, her son and her son's friend move in. She makes all of us sign a lease. She puts herself as the landlord, though. I again foolishly signed the lease. Her son is having weekly get-togethers at the house with the speakers booming until 4 a.m. on weekends and weekdays with his friends. She and I get into an argument over that. Then the house gets raided because her son is gang-affiliated and was charged with 6 felonies, which was something very traumatic for me. I never knew that he was up to no good, and having multiple cops point their rifles at you isn't fun or funny. I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks because of the anxiety it gave me. Fast forward this month. Her son moves out unexpectedly around the 6th. I asked her if she'd be replacing him, as I didn't want the rent to go up for me. She said she'd think about it. Then she and my other roommate get into a big fight, and the other roommate gives her 30 days' notice, and I start to bug her again about getting the 2 roommates replaced. She kept avoiding my question and telling me she'd get back to me. I eventually get tired of not having an answer and tell her that I'd be leaving too, since I wouldn't be able to afford this place if she doesn't replace the roommates. I made it clear to her that I wasn't in the position to relocate, but I also couldn't afford living here without her replacing the roommates. She tells me that it's perfect that I'm leaving because she didn't want to stay here either, and we leave it at that. Well, on Friday I come home to a notice from the gas company, and it said that it's getting shut off due to non-payment. The letter said she owed $2,000. I asked her through text if she could send me receipts of all the bills and rent for these past 2 months. She refuses. She then goes on to tell me that it doesn't matter if she paid or not, because I'm leaving anyway, and that it wouldn't affect me. I told her I just wanted the receipts anyway, and she then told me she was too busy to send them. She then tells me that the landlord contacted her and stated that she just learned that she had been illegally subletting rooms for her own financial gain. She told me this because she wanted to know if it was me that told the landlord. It wasn't. I have no clue who it would have been. It was the other roommate. But anyway, when she tells me what the landlord told her, I began connecting the dots. So I heavily suspect that she pocketed the rent money and bills. I'm not too sure for how long, and got an eviction notice. Again, I'm just speculating. I was able to get a hold of the landlord and explain everything, and she told me she's already working with a lawyer to sue her, but didn't give me any more details. Anyway, I hope she gets in trouble and faces the consequences. 4. I have lived with my roommate for 2 years in this apartment. I'm not a confrontational person, but in January I finally got the courage to ask him to move out. These 2 years have been an absolute disaster, and he has been nearly impossible to live with. I have known this friend since high school, and after hearing about his terrible living situation with his old roommate, who was physically and verbally abusive, I suggested we get an apartment together. Immediately upon helping him move in, issues began. He has had so much stuff for one person: clothes, books, furniture, food. He managed to stuff most of it in his room, but the rest got put in shared closets in our basement. He continued to state he planned on going through it all and getting rid of stuff, but this never happened. In fact, he apparently had more things stored at his parents', which he slowly started bringing over. Over the past 2 years, he's been collecting more and more, and his room is basically a hoarder's nest, with clothes piled 4 feet high, a closet so stuffed it won't close, and beer cans covering the remaining floor. In the few times I've peeked in there, the smell of stale beer, mildew, and cat pee have been overwhelming. I have managed to keep the rest of the place neat, even with his things crowding the closets. At first, I did not mind the fact that his room was dirty. It is his personal space, and he can do what he likes with it. The issue was the lack of courtesy for shared spaces. Not once have I seen him vacuum, mop, dust, clean the bathroom, or use any of the cleaning spray. He used to be good at doing his own dishes, sweeping, and taking out the trash, but even that has dwindled. When bringing up how I would like more help with things, he always begins complaining about his childhood trauma and his current stress with family or his job. I would drop the conversation out of guilt. I know he has been through a lot, and I try to comfort him when I can. I assume he mostly forgets our conversations anyways, because anytime he is home, he is drinking. When we were asked to renew our lease the first time, he was doing well, which is why I signed with him again. I know it was a mistake. Since asking him to move out, he has completely stopped cleaning things. As we continued living together, I noticed his drinking got worse. A few times I had noticed he had come home drunk and stumbling. I told him to call me if he needed a ride, and that I didn't want him drinking and driving. Ultimately, he totaled his car and was arrested for a DUI. He admits it was wrong, yet was constantly complaining about the expensive tickets and fees he suffered, as well as the fact that he no longer had a car. He continued drinking. In one instance, when I was out of town, in a blackout, he broke into one of our neighbors' apartments thinking it was ours. Still in a state of confusion, and proceeded to pound on the door of a different neighbor thinking it was our house until they called the police, though he wasn't arrested. I came home and received multiple calls from my neighbors telling me what happened, and I was furious. I sat down and had a conversation with him about his drinking, and I thought he was receptive. A few months later, I went on a vacation with family. I had asked a friend to stop by and feed my cats. When my friend came by, he noticed one of my cats was missing. While drunk, my roommate admitted he had left the door open and my cat got out. A friend was able to find her before I got home. When I came home, my roommate informed me we had also been robbed because when he went to the bar, he left the door unlocked. Fortunately, none of my things were missing. I sat down with him several times, begging him to get sober and offering my support. I stopped inviting him out, keeping liquor in the fridge and hiding my beer. He drank it. I'm embarrassed to have friends over because of how he acts when drunk. For over a month, he has been sleeping in the living room on my couch. He leaves beer cans all over, drools on my couch, and I was honestly nervous he might pee on it, which he is known to do. In the first week, I asked him why. He said his room was hot. I told him I could help him set up his AC, but he said he just needed to find time to do it. A couple of weeks passed, and I asked him why he is still sleeping on the couch, and he says his bed is uncomfortable, and the only way he can get a good night's rest is by sleeping on my couch. He has an extra mattress in the basement that is new. I offered to help him bring it up, but he said he was going to wait to use it for when he moves out. A few times I have had family or friends over and find him passed out drunk on the couch in the afternoon. It was embarrassing. I resorted to taking all pillows and blankets out of the living room and storing them in my bedroom closet so that he would get the hint. I asked him a couple of weeks ago again if he had found a place to live. He said no, and that apartments are too expensive, but that he would start looking. He has looked at only one place and has not signed a lease. Last week, he bought a car. When he told me this, I told him I had someone else moving into his room, and he looked offended and said he is going to be homeless because he doesn't have any money. He makes decent money, but since he likes expensive beer and eating out a lot, he is terrible at saving. I reassured him he could find a place cheaper if he moved closer to where he works. He wants to live downtown. He has 25 days to find a new apartment and move out. He has not packed a single box nor looked at more places. I told him 6 months ago that after his lease is up, he needs to move out. I'm scared he's going to beg to keep living here. He will actually be homeless, or will refuse to move out. I know our friendship is ruined after this, but I still care about him. What can I do, or should I do if he has not found a place by his move-out date? Hellfreezer's note: the kindest thing you can do for both yourself and your soon-to-be former roommate is kick him out if he's still not ready to leave willingly by the move-out date. If you allow him to stay, he'll think he can just stay as long as he likes and he'll have no respect for you. If you do kick him out, you will teach him that his actions and his laziness have consequences. Worst case scenario, maybe his parents will let him stay until he gets back on his feet. Who knows, it's really not your problem at that point. You've been very kind to him. And right now the kindest thing you can do is to be firm with him and stick to your convictions. But I hope he moves out willingly, although I would be a little bit concerned about his bedroom if he's not willing to sleep in there. And he's not willing to allow you in to help install the AC unit because he alleges the room was too hot. I'd have a good thorough inspection after he's gone if I were you. 5. I'm a 26-year-old woman. So, in summer last year I found a potential roommate, female 25, on a house hunting app, and after a few friend dates we decided to move in together. Everything was fine until a few months ago. We got on super well and it was always lovely coming home to her. She wasn't always the tidiest or cleanest, but that's just the norm of living with someone else. Generally we had a great time and became good friends. I've lived with various housemates in the past, and so I thought I knew what to expect, but boy was I wrong. A few months ago, the housemate, Sarah, started massively struggling with her mental health. We both have ADHD and anxiety, so I did my best to support her and be there for her, as I can appreciate how hard it can be. However, every now and then she'd find something to be mad at me about, when I'd be sure I hadn't done anything wrong. Some examples. One day I got home early from work and went to do some laundry. I found Sarah had left wet laundry in the washing machine. So I hung this up for her on our shared error. I then immediately proceeded to put my wash on and then hung it up with Sarah's on our dryer. Nothing overlapping, everything evenly distributed to dry, etc. I then went out for the evening. During the evening, I received a barrage of messages from Sarah saying that I was selfish and malicious for putting my wet washing on top of her dry washing. I then came home to find my wet washing dumped in a pile on my bedroom floor, and hers left on the error. She was going on holiday and asked if I could drive her to the airport. I have a car, she doesn't. Usually I'd be open to this sort of thing. I often give her lifts into town to various shops, etc. However, on this occasion, she was asking me to drive her to an airport 2 hours away in rush hour on a weekday evening, after I finished work. This would have meant I would have had to leave work early, drive her 2 hours, probably would have been more with traffic, get to the airport at about 8 p.m., then just turn right around and go back home. I would have gotten back home at about 10 or 11 p.m. without having had dinner, and then sleep before I had to get up for work early again the next morning. I apologized but explained that this wasn't possible. I began researching coach journeys, etc. she could take instead. Found one for about £20 and offered to drop her at the coach station instead 20 minutes away. It would have wiped out my entire evening and cost me more in petrol money than it would for her to get a coach. When I told her, she reacted horribly and immediately began barraging me with messages again, calling me selfish and an awful friend. She used the fact that I'd taken my boyfriend to a local airport about a month earlier. This was a 20-minute drive on a Saturday morning when I didn't have to work, so I explained that it was quite different, but she wouldn't accept it. As I said, I am quite an anxious person and hate confrontation, so when these things would happen, I never retaliated. I simply explained my perspective and apologized. Maybe this is where I went wrong. I always wanted to avoid any kind of drama in our home and just felt it was the easier way to live. These flare-ups became more and more regular, and each one became more difficult to diffuse. After a while, the text messages started coming in daily, always while I was at work. False accusations about me hacking into her email account or stealing things from her. It was always the same pattern. These messages would come through constantly while I was at work. She'd be really cruel and mean and would say some really personal things about me, saying my boyfriend hates me and she wished she'd never met me, etc. I would try and diffuse her over message, and then when I got home she'd act like nothing had happened. It got to a point where my anxiety was so through the roof I started having panic attacks about going home, and would start shivering whenever my phone went off. One day, in one of her rants to me, she declared that I was banned from ever having friends, my boyfriend, in our flat ever again, and that I was also banned from using her TV, because she thought I'd hacked her YouTube. She also stopped paying bills and refused to settle them with me. Over the course of our tenancy, she had often damaged or broken my belongings, and I became worried about anything of mine being left with her. So one evening, when she'd gone to bed, I took a couple of my things into my bedroom, like my air fryer and things of sentimental value. The next day I received another barrage of messages of false accusations and name-calling, to the point I blocked her because I couldn't cope with receiving them. I came home from work to find all of my belongings from the kitchen piled up on the floor outside of my bedroom. I immediately crumbled and went into my bedroom and had the worst panic attack of my life. It was truly awful. I felt so unsafe in my own home. She'd never been verbally abusive to me in person, but her moving my belongings like this felt like she'd crossed a line, and I was terrified as to how things could escalate further. Our once peaceful and safe home had become very unwelcoming and a totally hostile environment. I was dreading coming home every day, but also couldn't get away from her when I was out. I decided I had to move out, for my sanity as well as hers. I started staying with a friend and decided to take some time off work to move out, on days I knew she'd usually be in the office. The first day went fine. I came with my boyfriend and collected some things from my bedroom. The second day went very, very badly. My dad drove an hour to come with me and help pack up some more of my things. We were peacefully packing up some boxes in the living room when Sarah's manager from work, whom she was also sleeping with, came in and started filming us. He said Sarah was home, heard us packing, and was worried I was packing her belongings instead of my own. I felt quite weird about him doing this, but told him feel free to film. There's nothing to hide, that I'm only packing my own things. He went away, and then about 20 minutes later all hell broke loose. My housemate came barging into the room, red in the face, screaming at the top of her lungs at me and my dad. She was shouting expletives at both of us. She called my 68-year-old father a very rude name, and that he should be ashamed of his daughter. She began tipping my carefully packed boxes upside down, stating that they were all her belongings. They weren't. She started throwing food around the room, and at us both. I started crying in fear, and she stood over me, screaming at me, calling me a malicious bitch, etc. Told me she was going to steal my things as revenge for me stealing hers. I had 0 of her belongings. At some point during this, I grabbed my phone and got an audio recording of her. Listening back to it now, she was totally incoherent, and what she was saying didn't even make any sense. She was so verbally abusive to myself and my dad that we had to retreat to my bedroom and lock ourselves in. We could hear her smashing up the kitchen, throwing things around and screaming that she was stealing my things. Myself and my dad were terrified and trapped in my bedroom, so we called the police. The police came, escorted us out, and basically said we'd have to come back another day and there was nothing they could do. They said she was clearly suffering from some kind of mental health breakdown, but that they couldn't admit her to any sort of mental health hospital without consent from her, or contact with her family and consent from them, both of which she refused to give. A few days later, I came back with my partner, his cousin and girlfriend, both of them medical professionals. The cousin is a paramedic and has dealt with a lot of mental health emergencies, and we thought this could help if we need to defuse any kind of situation. My partner texted Sarah about 30 minutes before we got there, just to give her the heads up that we were going to come by and grab some of my things. When we arrived, we could already hear my housemates screaming from inside the flat property. We approached the front door but never went in. We could see her through the glass front door, sitting with her back up against it and rocking back and forth. She was hysterically crying and screaming, to the point all of the neighbors were coming out to see what was going on. She was on the phone saying, "They've come to rob me, they're here." A few moments later, 2 police cars turned up. She'd called the police on me this time. They had asked me a few questions, but they very quickly realized I was no danger to anyone, and that they needed to get to Sarah inside. They knocked, but Sarah initially refused to let them in, saying, "How do I really know it's the police?" etc. Eventually she let them in, whilst one officer stayed with me outside. About half an hour later, the police came out and confirmed to me that she was still totally hysterical, and had been aggressive toward them too. They couldn't calm her down. They advised me to come back another time, to arrange this with someone else who could communicate with Sarah, to avoid me having to deal with her directly, and that on this next occasion, Sarah would have to allow me to move out my things, or they would have to restrain her. The police once again could do nothing to try and help Sarah, and were forced to leave her alone in that state. This country needs better mental health services. I heard later that she had been admitted to hospital and was sedated later that day. Still no clue how this happened, but my assumption is that she became increasingly distressed and called an ambulance for herself. Through her sleazy manager, Bob, we managed to organize a day when Sarah would vacate the property and allow me to move out. Her only demand was that Bob stayed at the property and watched me. I obviously told Bob I wasn't comfortable with this, and he agreed to just lock himself in Sarah's bedroom to keep us both happy. On move-out day, I came with a removals van, both my parents and their friend, to help with the heavy lifting. We successfully managed to pack up my bedroom. However, Sarah had confiscated every single item from the rest of the flat. I'm talking everything, from the coffee table and dining table, to every single tin and condiment from the cupboards. The place was barren. Bob later told me everything was piled up in her small bedroom. I'm guessing out of fear that I would take it all. We share about £250 worth of furniture. This was all gone. She'd kindly returned some of the kitchen things she'd taken from me before. These were outside my bedroom, but had failed to give back everything. Example, she had split the pack of 4 soap bars we had bought together, left 2 with my stuff, but hadn't returned my clothes rail she had taken. It was all very weird, but thankfully, I managed to successfully get out 80% of my stuff. The worst part of this is my letting agent and landlord took her side, and legally I was totally stuck and bound by my contract, continuing to owe rent even though it wasn't safe for me to enter the property. I am moving in with my boyfriend now in a few weeks and couldn't be more excited. However, I am still left stung by the things she took from me. As well as our shared furniture, she owes me approximately £150 from the bills she stopped paying. On top of this, we also have approximately £600 in debt on our energy account, which is only in my name. Yes, I'm an idiot, which she is refusing to share with me. I'm at such a loss. I'm going to investigate what I can do to retrieve these things. I suspect she's having some kind of schizophrenic episode or psychosis. I've never experienced anything like this. It's terrifying to watch a friend turn into such a monster. This whole situation has totally traumatized me, my family, and my partner. The sad thing is I still care about her and worry about how she's doing. Any ideas about what I can do next, or any similar experiences would be much appreciated. Hellfreezer's note. I think one of the things you need to do is send him an anonymous letter or make an anonymous call to the HR department of the place that Sarah and the creepy manager work. That man is taking sexual advantage of a mentally ill young woman. I do appreciate that you have kind words for her toward the end and that you do still worry about her well-being. It would be very understandable if you weren't after everything she's put you through. But the fact is, she needs serious, long-term mental help, and I hope she gets it. But this isn't about her. It's about the situation she left you in. Definitely contact the energy company, explain the situation to them. They might be able to do something, a payment plan or something to help. You're not going to get the money she owes you from the bills. I'm so sorry to say that, but you're not. It's just not going to happen unless she gets her head on straight. It might be worth looking into, you know her, she may have mentioned things before. Does she have an okay relationship with her family? Reaching out to them, perhaps. Maybe they can force her to get the help she needs. I don't think she needs to be sectioned. That's a very drastic thing to do. Do they even still do that these days? I know they did a few years back. That can often be a very traumatic thing and not have the desired effect. But she definitely needs help long term. But I'm very glad you're out of there. I'm glad you're looking forward to a new chapter of your life, moving in with your boyfriend, and I'm a little jealous that you get to live with your partner because, that's something my Jack and I are working on, and I'll hope everything works out best for both of you. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Bad Roommates episode 24. And before you go, please do push the like button and share the video with friends and family. If you'd like to get early access to these videos, you can get that on my Patreon page by supporting me there for as little as $1 or more if you would like a month. That is linked for you in the description. You'll also find links there to the Hellfreezer Discord server, as well as a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store, which is currently on Teespring. If you really enjoyed today's video and you'd like to leave a tip for that, you can do that by clicking on the heart with the $sign underneath the video player. That is not required, and none of that is ever required, but I very much do appreciate the help. Thank you kindly. Okay, no other bits and bobs today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And this one is roommate related, comes from Fuzzy McBear through the Discord. Would you rather have one of the roommates from Bad Roommates or an entity from Paranormal Stories sharing your living space with you? That's a very good question, and it's not a simple answer, because if you have a human roommate, you have to put up with another human being existing and doing human things, and not every person is compatible, but they are at least paying rent. However, if it's a ghost, assuming it's one of the more peaceful or more playful entities, well, you might have that presence there, but at least they're not going to be getting up in your business too much. And if it's one of the more playful ones, you can say, hey, look, not now, no. And they'll calm down for a bit. So if it was one of those, yeah, I'd be fine with it. But not one of the scary ones that you wake up in the middle of the night, and then there's a shadow figure at the end of the bed, crawling closely, ever inching closely. Don't look away. You can't look away. If you look away, it's over. Something like that. Let me know what you think in a comment below. Now, before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this was from Bad Roommates 22, I think? Yeah, 22. And was in relation to films you're looking forward to coming out this year. And today's answer comes from Kaze Ryo Trey. I do hope I got that right. I am super excited to see the new Beverly Hills Cop movie. Besides that, I am looking forward to the Sailor Moon Cosmos animated movie to come out on Netflix. Thank you very much for your answer, Kaze Ryu. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now, because it's that time. It's almost 7:20 in the morning, And the birds are chirping, and somewhere there is a rooster going, "Arr, arr, arr, arr," which is very weird for a residential neighborhood. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.